Good morning, St. Wenceslas. Good to be with you. Hope you're having a beautiful Lent in the second week of Lent now. And I have just been having an amazing Lent. It's been just a freeing time to get rid of all the distractions. I took Archbishop Lucas's recommendation from his reflection on Lent as Lent began, just to kind of, I don't know, like distance myself from all the stuff that is eating up my free time. So I'm fasting from media, fasting from the news, fasting from the internet. Of course, I use it for stuff like this to speak to you and to check my emails and everything, but it's been so freeing just to have this extra space and extra time to be um, with the Lord and to read again and to drink wine slowly. That's so special just to be able to savor something like wine or savor something like a good meal. And having all this extra time during Lent is a great opportunity for that. This is my second reflection on the year of St. Joseph. I'll be reflecting on St. Joseph with you each Wednesday. Of course, Pope Francis declared that this year, 2021, would be the year of St. Joseph for a number of different reasons, but there's so much for us to learn about St. Joseph and who he wants to be for us as a father. And I have here Pope Francis's letter called Patris Corde, with a father's heart. That's the name of the letter that Pope Francis published at the beginning of this year. And a lot of it is his own personal reflections on who St. Joseph is. And today, I want to reflect with you on how St. Joseph was an obedient father. An obedient father. Last week, we talked about how St. Joseph was both a beloved father, beloved by the church, beloved by God, and how also he was a tender and loving father to Jesus. And I just invited you to reflect on your own relationship with your own dad and how that is. You know, we all have imperfect earthly dads. And is there a way in your heart that you struggle to experience and receive a father's love? This time, though, let's talk about St. Joseph as an obedient father. St. Joseph was obedient to God, especially. St. Joseph was a very faithful Jewish man, and so he followed the prescriptions of the law throughout his whole life, the feast days and the kind of the moral code of conduct within the Jewish law. He was a faithful Jew, and Jews especially have lots of rules and laws about how to worship and clean and unclean and rites of purification. And Joseph was obedient. One of the reasons that God gave the Jewish people such an intricate law, 600 and some different commandments. There's more than just 10, hope you know. There's the 10 commandments that were inscribed in stone, but then there was over 600 other commandments that God gave through Moses to his people while they were in the desert, all having to do with those things I mentioned before. If you've ever heard of kosher food, clean and unclean animals, what you can and can't eat, what you can and can't do. Those are all ways not for God to put a straitjacket on us. God gave us the law to give us the opportunity to obey him, to give us the opportunity to respond in faith and in trust. God gave us the law so that we'd have an opportunity to cooperate with him and to respond with sort of this trusting and obedient heart, not to make us less free, but to make us more free, to give us a chance to work with him, to experience the fullness of life, the fullness of human freedom. St. Joseph was an obedient father, and one of the main ways that Pope Francis says that he was obedient was through his dreams. I didn't realize this exactly until I read Pope Francis's letter. St. Joseph had 4 divine dreams, 4 of them. I only really remembered like 1 or 2, but there was 4. The first one was after Mary was found to be with child and it was not Joseph's. He decided to divorce her quietly or to leave her quietly. And that's when the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Joseph, do not be afraid to take Mary, your wife, into your home, for the child conceived in her is from God. the Son of God. And you, Joseph, are to name him Jesus. And it says, immediately Joseph took Mary and the child into his home. How beautiful is that? Immediately he obeyed the angel. He obeyed the voice of God that came to him through the angel. Even though it was mysterious, even though it was strange, there had never been a virginal conception before. Joseph trusted and obeyed the voice of God. The second dream was, of course, when he wouldn't have known this, but thank God that God told him that Herod was going to kill baby Jesus. Remember, the Magi had come to Herod in Jerusalem and said, "We're here to see the new king." And Herod's like, "What new king?" And they're like, "There's a new king born in Bethlehem." And Herod was like, "Oh, is there really? Tell me more about him." Herod didn't like that, so he decided to put out a decree that all Hebrew children 2 years old and younger in the region of Bethlehem and the surrounding regions would be killed. So after Christmas, we celebrate that feast of the Holy Innocents. Those babies who were killed by Herod and his people, Herod and his soldiers, to try to hunt down this new king and to kill him. Uh, so the angel had to tell St. Joseph, flee to Egypt, get out of this country, go to a different country where Herod can't kill your baby. And so Joseph, that was hard, as if their life wasn't already hard enough. They had to go to Bethlehem and there was no room in the inn. And he had already obeyed once when Mary was found to be with child. Joseph had to obey again, and he chose to obey again, and thank God he did, or there would have been no Jesus. Jesus would have been killed. Um, Mary also would have been killed, by the way, if Joseph hadn't obeyed God and taken her into his home and vouched for her that this woman is not an adulteress. She does not deserve to be stoned according to the Jewish law, but he took her into his home. And then he fled to Egypt to save baby Jesus. He saved Mary's life and he saved Jesus's life. We have Joseph to thank for that. And we don't know how long they lived in Egypt, but they did for a time. Then there was another dream that Joseph had when God told him to go home. It's time to go home. The people who were seeking to kill your child are now dead, and you may go home. And so Joseph obeyed and said, "Okay, I trust you, God. I trust that this is legit. I trust that we can go home." And they did. But on the way, they found out that it says Joseph heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in place of his father Herod. So he was afraid to go there. But then he was warned in a dream, the fourth dream, that this was happening. And so he went around a longer way, all the way to the region of Galilee. And he stopped in Galilee, and that region, they set up their home in Nazareth. So they took the long way home to avoid running into people who still probably wanted to kill this new king of the Jews, this new baby Jesus. And so he obeyed again. Mary and Joseph, Pope Francis says, obeyed all the prescriptions of the Jewish law. They weren't above the law, they were very faithful to the Jewish law. The rites of the circumcision of Jesus, a very sacred thing to the Jewish people. The purification of Mary after her childbirth. There's all these purification rites that were so sacred. The offering of the firstborn to God when Jesus was presented in the temple and the prophet Simeon and the prophetess Anna were there. Mary and Joseph were obedient. Pope Francis says that Joseph declared his own fiat. Mary gave her yes, her full fiat to the angel when the angel came to her. And she said, "Yes, let it be done to me according to your word." Joseph gave his own fiat, said again and again to the Lord, "Yes, I trust you." I have a statue here of sleeping Saint Joseph. Isn't that great? Sleeping Saint Joseph. This was given to me when I was ordained a priest. This got popular because Pope Francis has this in his office. And when Pope Francis has a particular intention, he'll write it on a piece of paper and he'll slip it under St. Joseph's pillow here. I don't really do that, but I've got Joseph by my desk all the time, and this sleeping Joseph. Because the angel came to him in a dream, spoke God's voice, God's word to him, and he obeyed. He trusted that God wanted only what was good for him, even if it was difficult. This is so much like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane that we'll read about, of course, as we meditate on the stations of the cross and as we we'll eventually experience as we celebrate Holy Thursday and Good Friday in a few weeks. Jesus said to the Father in the garden, Father, not um, let this cup pass from me. I don't want to suffer and be tortured and die like this. And yet, not my will, Father, but yours be done. Do you find it difficult to obey God? Specifically, is there a teaching of his church that you struggle to obey? Is there a teaching of the Catholic Church that you just think is stupid or silly or hard to understand or outdated or um, corrupt or old school? Is there any teaching of the church that you're sort of throwing to the wind? Do you struggle to obey the church? If you do, you might ask for a deeper grace of trust. I can tell you, before I was ordained a priest, I made what's called my oath of fidelity. And I promised on a Bible, with my hand on a Bible, kind of like the president does at an inauguration. I made my oath. I raised my hand and put my other hand on the Bible, and I swore an oath to God that I would obey the teachings of the Catholic Church in season and out of season. And then at my ordination, I promised my respect and obedience to Archbishop Lucas and his successors. I even put my hands together like this, and Archbishop took his hands and clasped my hands, and I offered my obedience to him. Obedience does not make us slaves, friends. Obedience makes us free. And we ought to obey God. We ought to obey his church. We ought to obey those in authority over us. And that can be really hard, especially if we don't trust them. So there's a relationship in your life with God, with the church, with somebody in authority, where you struggle to trust them. I invite you to ask for that grace, to trust like St. Joseph, to obey like St. Joseph, so that you would know the fullness of the freedom that God has in store for you. You might even pray for the grace of a holy dream. God works incredible things in dreams. I have some stories of my own of times that God gave me the gift of a sacred dream. You might ask for that tonight. In faith, ask in faith. We all have dreams, whether we remember them or not, and God can bless those and use dreams as he does to St. Joseph, but also all throughout the scriptures, using dreams to reveal his will to us. There's a particular receptivity that we have while we are resting and while we are asleep. So ask for that gift, ask for that grace of a holy dream and see what happens. But more than anything, ask for the grace of trust in this Lenten season, that we could obey and trust like St. Joseph and experience the glorious freedom of the children of God. God bless you all. Hope you have a beautiful rest of your Lenten season and a beautiful day. Take care.